So what is the best budget gaming laptop in early 2020 under $900? Right now Amazon is having a promotion on Acer's latest gaming machine called the Predator Helios 300. Now Acer is selling a wide range of Helios 300 models, all with somewhat similar specs, with the difference being the amount of RAM, the storage capacity, and the CPU and the core count and the screen. The entry models got a 120Hz display instead of a 144Hz one you find on the Core i7 model. The entry model is currently selling for $899 and that's $100 off the original MSRP. And guys, this is a pretty good deal actually. This one's got an Intel Core i5 at 9300H based on Intel's 9th gen and Coffee Lake family. It's got 4 cores and 8 threads with a clock frequency range between 2.4 GHz and 4.1, and thanks to a fairly high IPC and clock speed, it is powerful enough to not become a bottlenecking factor in most games out there. Other than that, it's got 8 gigs of RAM, 512 gigs of SSD storage, and a GTX 1660 Ti and a 120Hz IPS display. And if you got about $900 to spend, you're getting a lot of performance here basically. And I actually tested this machine a few weeks ago and I was pretty impressed, I have to say. Now the main difference between the model I tested and this one that is selling for $899 is that the one that I was testing had a Core i7 9750H processor with 2 additional cores and 4 more threads and a bit higher clock speeds, and the model I tested also had 16GB of RAM and a 144Hz screen. And this model is also currently on sale on Amazon, where you can save $330, and that's actually an all-time low for this model. Using a Chrome extension called Keepa, we can actually track the price history, and I'll recommend you guys to download this add-on to never miss a good deal. And I have it linked up down below alongside all the laptops mentioned in this video. Anyway, if you got about $800 to $900 to spend, if we were to look beyond the Predator Helios, what other options are there? So Lenovo is selling a popular model called L340, but I wouldn't pay $900 for a GTX 1650, which barely handled AAA games and 1080p. Apart from that, we also got the Legion series from Lenovo, which is another popular pick, and currently Amazon is selling this one for a bit over $1,000 with very similar specs to the Helios. I haven't specifically tested these models, I can't really share my thoughts on it. Finally, we got the Top series from Acer, which is also another popular one. Unfortunately, all models are based on AMD's 3rd gen Ryzen for mobile, which is noticeably slower than Intel's current offerings, so this wouldn't really be my first recommendation. So anyway, let's say you're interested in the Helios. Something worth mentioning is that despite what model you end up picking, you're still going to get the same build quality, the same case, the same cooling, the same keyboard, the trackpad, and the graphics card. And speaking of which, I have to say I find the GTX 1660 Ti to be a solid pick for the mobile market. It's got the perfect balance between price, performance, and energy efficiency. It doesn't run too hot, which is important. It is powerful enough to run most games in silky smooth frame rate in 1080p with great level of details, and it's not too pricey either. Now keep in mind though, the numbers you see on screen represent the model with the Core i7 and 9750H processor, so there's going to be a slight performance penalty on the Core i5 model. It is not going to be major, but you will see a few less frames here because of fewer cores and a slight lower core clock. Now despite all of this, one of the Helios 300's strongest buying argument is the cooling system in my opinion, and with the simple press of a button you can also overclock your system to give you that extra edge in scenarios where you need a few extra frames. And in case you are interested in my experience after testing this machine for about 2 weeks, here's once again the recap of my experience with the Acer Predator Helios 300. In case you have any questions, please let me know in the comments below. Now in case you want to jump straight over to the benchmarks, you find the timestamp for that down in the video description, as well as links to where you can pick this up. Hey, what is up guys, welcome to Arbin Hardware, and my name is Robin. I'm your Swedish host and friend with bad posture and poor accent. Is this the best budget gaming laptop right now? Well, let's find out. So this one features Intel's Core i7 9750H processor alongside GeForce RTX 1660 Ti GPU. The Predator also comes with 16GB of RAM, and so based on these specs we should expect to meet pretty much all games recommended requirements, which is mighty impressive considering the price tag, and it shows how far gaming laptops have evolved in the last couple of years. But yeah, it keeps getting better. The Helios 300 has a 15.6-inch 144Hz display too, and this is an IPS display, and IPS displays displays are known for having, better color reproduction and better viewing angles, and neither of those disappoint here either, but we're gonna touch more on this in a second. Now, Acer no longer relies on the black and the red design that they used to with the last Helios 300, and here's a picture showing how these series used to look. Now the company has switched to black and blue. Now, while the aluminum keyboard deck and display lid help makes Helios 300 look premium, the matte finish picks up fingerprint quite easily, which is good to have in mind. Now, overall, I do think they've done a great job here, and the mix between aluminum and plastic makes the machine feel, more expensive than it actually is, and it also helped the laptop being more stable with minimal flexing. The Predator logo on the lid also has a blue backlight, and this is a nice bonus, I think. Now, the Helios 300 has stable display hinges too, and the two hinges not only hold the display tightly and keep teetering on a minimum, but they also allow you to open it with just one hand, which typically is a quality indication. In terms of size, for being a gaming laptop, the Helios 300 is relatively compact for a 15.6 display with a weight of a modest 2.3 kilograms. The 180 watt power supply weighs around 500 to 600 grams, which you will probably also need as you carrying this thing around, so that is worth having in mind. So therefore, a carrying bag seems like a good idea if you're planning on carrying this around on the go, for example. In terms of ports and I/O, Acer has equipped the Helios 300 with all the ports that most gamers should need here, and in total the Predator got 4 USB 3.2 ports, and one of which is Type-C. And while you can connect the Helios 300 to an external display via the Type-C port, you can also use the HDMI or the mini display port as well here. And Acer has also included an Ethernet port here, but there is no SD card reader, and this can be a huge deal breaker if you're a photographer, for example. But if you're just planning on using this for gaming purely, you should definitely be more than satisfied with the ports that this device offers. We find large ventilation grills on both sides, as well as 2 additional ventilation grills on the back. And booting up the laptop, you notice that the Helios comes with a handful of softwares pre-installed, so-called bloatwares, and these include the Predator Sense software, Norton Security Ultra, as well as Dropbox. For some reason I don't quite understand. The software can easily be uninstalled, and I would highly suggest you to actually start from scratch and reinstalling Windows from zero, but that's just my 2 cents. Anyway, the only important software here is the Predator Sense, and the company has given the software a blue and a black skin to match the color scheme, and I find this to be a nice touch. The Predator Sense not only allow you to monitor the CPU and the GPU, but it also lets you overclock them. You can also change the keyboard RGB backlighting, as well as fine-tune fan curves, etc., which I do find quite useful, especially on a gaming laptop like this. Removing the bottom plate is a simple process, and doing so reveals the 3 drive bays we find here. We find the battery, we find a Wi-Fi card, and we find the RAM, among the other components, obviously. Let's talk about the keyboard. So this laptop's got a 6-row chiclet keyboard. It's slightly recessed into the chassis, and all the keys sits firmly in their housings and nothing rattles. And overall, I'm very satisfied with the key presses and the travel. The keys measures about 15 square millimeter, which should be large enough for most hands. And I do find them to be pretty spot on in terms of travel. Each key also have a dampening stop, and this ensures that the keyboard remains quiet even when typing quickly, and this is basically what it sounds like. You got 4 zones of RGB here, and you can customize these in the Predator Sense software. Now the trackpad measures 10.7 by 7.8 centimeters, and is large enough to perform multi-finger gestures, and I do think that it fits the overall look of the laptop. Now, though the trackpad wouldn't really matter too much on a gaming laptop, it can be a practical tool in case you simply don't have a mouse around. Now, as for the display, the Helios 300 comes with a 15.6-inch 1920 by 1080 IPS display with a 3 millisecond response time and 144 Hz refresh rate. And according to most other reviews online, Acer has fitted Helios with a panel from AU Optronics. This display achieves a maximum brightness of 310 nits, and overall the display performs excellent. However, like many displays, we do find a bit of backlight bleeding here, and as you can see, it is very minor. And unless you're sitting in a completely dark room and you're watching movies with black borders. The minor bleeding shouldn't really be visible. In terms of color accuracy for being a gaming display, I am quite impressed, I'm not gonna lie. Although I should say I don't have any calibration tool to accurately measure the colors, but just doing a comparison between other displays, I'm very happy how this performs, and this is the best way I can put it. The display also covers 93% of the sRGB color space and 60% of Adobe RGB. And while neither is high enough for professional image and video editing, you obviously want to strive for the best possible color accuracy regardless. And the matte display also gets bright enough to use the Helios 300 outdoors, although I would recommend sitting indoors for serious gaming sessions for obvious reasons. And in terms of viewing angles, they are also very good. Part of this is due to the IPS display, of course, and while some clouding is visible in certain angles, I find the display to always deliver, accurate colors and readable text. I gotta give Acer kudos for the 144Hz screen, and this is obviously the way to go on a gaming laptop, and the only thing I miss here is adaptive sync, and you should know this, there is no G-Sync or FreeSync available on this laptop, but granted, adaptive sync is usually only available in more expensive models. Let's talk performance. The Core i7-9750H has a 2.6 GHz base clock that it can achieve across all 6 cores. The 9th gen Coffee Lake can also use this feature called Turbo Boost, and its processor can go all the way up to 4.5 GHz on 2 cores at the same time, or 4 GHz on 6, and the length of the time that the CPU can remain its turbo boost depends on the effectiveness of the cooling system. And to try and see how good the cooling was, I decided to play Gears 5 for about 15 to 20 minutes, then I decided to loop Cinebench R15 to see how well the system was doing under sustained load. I was surprised how efficient the dual fan cooling system actually is, and so what this means is that you shouldn't expect the laptop to lose significant performance over time when playing for longer sessions, which can be a fairly common issue on a gaming laptop. And in case where things can get sweaty, you also have a turbo button on the upper left side corner, which made me laugh at first when I saw this. Activating this gives the fan no restrictions, and it can become pretty loud here, but it is a very effective way of keeping the temperatures in place for sure. And as for storage, this is kind of this laptop Achilles heel, I would say. We find a 512GB SSD, and this is specifically a drive from Western Digital, and thanks to it being an NVMe drive, it performs excellent. And apart from this drive, you also have 2 additional M.2 at 2280 slots and 1 2.5-inch bay, which is nice to know. However, something to have in mind is that 512GB is not that much these days, and with 3 to 4 games installed, I have already filled up half of the SSD capacity, and this is definitely something to have in mind. The graphics card is one of the most important components in the gaming laptop, and the Predator doesn't disappoint here. The GeForce GTX 1660 Ti based on 12nm and Turing with 6GB of VRAM deliver fantastic performance, and the graphics card is powerful enough to play AAA titles at 1080p, and in many cases in less demanding esport games, locking the frame rate at 144 FPS to match the display is also achievable. And on top of that, the Helios also has this built-in Intel UHD graphics 630 on board. When you're doing less demanding stuff, you're browsing the web or you're basically on the desktop, the integrated graphics is activated to achieve better battery life basically. And in terms of performance, you'll notice that you will get away with impressive frame rate in most modern games playing at 1080p resolution. I was averaging around 160 FPS in Counter-Strike Global Offensive, but as I was jumping up to the ultra presets, I was seeing numbers as low as 120 FPS. It also does very good in Fortnite with around 120 FPS on average, and even League of Legends were averaging around 170 FPS, and overall the system delivers very smooth gameplay. In terms of fan noise, here's typically what the gaming laptop sounds like. And while the Helios 300 stays quite cool in touch when idling, most areas get quite hot under sustained load. Now, even though the palm rest always remain pretty cool, it can get pretty toasty towards the middle and towards the side. In case you are worried about temperatures, you always have this option of using the integrated software and, simply set fan curves, and you can even use the turbo button if you're fancy enough to simply let the fans rev up to 100% load, and doing so you will reduce the temperatures a lot. This however means that you gotta have to live with a pretty loud laptop as a result. In terms of speakers, they're nothing to brag about really. The absence of subwoofer definitely is the biggest issue here, which result in low bass tones is nothing to even talk about, while higher and mid frequencies are well presented. And so the answer to this is to either hook up a separate sound system or basically use headphones or a headset. As for the battery life, not much to brag about either here. I was achieving about 3.5 hours when using Wi-Fi, and as for gaming on the go, I didn't really test this because I don't think the laptop would last even an hour. But overall, the Helios 300 is a modern gaming laptop with very solid gaming performance. Right now you can actually pick this up from Amazon. It's just over $1,000, which is fantastic value. And Helios is well designed. It's got powerful hardware enough to run all current AAA games natively at 1080p, and you can even go for 144 FPS in esport games. It's also nice start seeing 144 Hz becoming a standard on gaming laptop these days, and honestly I wouldn't recommend picking a 60 Hz display if your goal is to game on it. Something worth noting is that the colors and the viewing angles are great as well. Backlight bleed is definitely something to have into consideration. Another disappointment is the storage, of course, and this is definitely something to be aware of. But overall, the Acer Predator Helios 300 is a very solid gaming machine that I cannot recommend enough to anyone looking for a monster gaming laptop that ticks all the boxes. And Amazon is currently selling this for just over $1,000, and for that money I wouldn't hesitate picking this up. Is this the best budget gaming laptop in 2020? Right now I definitely think so, without a doubt. And you'll find the links to where you can pick this up in the video description. In case you have any questions, please let me know. I want to thank you so much for sticking around this long to watch either of these two videos for more content, and I will see you over there. Until next time, have a fantastic day.